My first grade hire. I thought I'd hit the jackpot with this lead carpenter. He was skilled, young, charismatic, hardworking, and he could charm clients like nobody's business. Had an awesome personality. I was giving him the keys, going to set him up for success. I was like, we are loading up your van with all the best company tools. Here's a credit card from on the company so you can start getting the materials and helping out, right? I was like, this is the way that we build the team, right? Until it wasn't. Now, on one hand, he was awesome with clients that I had found, right? Would land the job, sell the job, put this employee on the job. And what was interesting was I was noticing we weren't getting much repeat business. We weren't getting many change orders. And several of these jobs, I clearly remembered the homeowner saying, yeah, look, I'm not necessarily ready to hire you for this right now. Let's see how this part goes, and then we'll add that. And when I didn't have this employee on the job, we would usually land that extra work. And I was like, this is strange. What's going on? Well, what wasn't strange was the clients were getting the work done. I wasn't being involved anymore. My employee had finagled a way where he was a good salesman now, and he's soliciting work for him and his side business. Now, that's one issue, right? Whether you guys allow that or don't, you figure that out in your business. But it gets better. So he was what we considered a little bit of a up above carpenter, right? We'll call him a lead carpenter. And I went and hired him a helper so that we could get some bigger projects knocked out a little faster. So all was going well until it wasn't. So one day I get a call from the helper who's sitting on a job site wondering where his lead carpenter is. And I was like, that's a good question because no one's called me to let me know that they're not showing up today. Well, it turns out that my lead carpenter was currently sitting in jail. Yeah, that's right. And the vehicle with all the company tools and the materials that the rest of us needed to get the job done, that vehicle had been impounded and was sitting in a city lot. It's great. Now, this happens more than it may not for some people. And we have to recognize, right, that we're going to make mistakes. I didn't know when I hired the young kid that he would have a drinking problem and he would be getting arrested for drunk driving just a few months down the road. I knew he was young, but I didn't know how irresponsible, right? And being vulnerable, getting myself set up to where all of our best tools are in one vehicle, I mean, that happens, right? And it just sucks that that day that vehicle happened to be impounded.
Hello, this is the HackHour Podcast, a show where it's all about helping real, everyday, hardworking remodelers learn the secrets to having it all in life and business. And now, here's your host, Mike Menges.
So, these types of incidences start becoming a wake-up call, and hopefully they never happen to you. And if they do, when you're new, you can finagle and get around them much easier sometimes, right? Because you learn valuable lessons. So for me, that was the last employee that I ever had who got arrested. I made different decisions going forward, how I hired, who I hired, why I hired, right? And today I want to share some of those lessons with you. Hopefully that you can skip a lot of the drama and build a team that makes your business shine. Like, trust me, it doesn't have to be that complicated, and you don't have to sweat it every day of the week. And the nightmare that some of you are living can be relieved. So, welcome back to the HackHour Podcast. This is episode 61, right? We got the podcast here that's for contractors and remodelers that are just ready to cut through all the chaos, and now you want to build that business that runs like a dream and make it a reality. I'm your host, Mike Menges, longtime remodeler and the founder of the Remodeling Academy. And today, we're diving in head first to the high-stakes world of deciding, art thou to hire or not to hire? Look, if you're losing sleep over finding the right team member, I can appreciate it and understand it. Maybe you're scared that you can't afford them. I hear that. Or you're worried that they'll expose weaknesses of yours. Yep, I get that as well. Or maybe, right, you're concerned that, man, we're just not there yet. Like, what if we hire this guy and then he doesn't want to be with our company anymore, right? Like stuff happens and most of it's stuck up in your head and it's trash and you got to get rid of it. So look, this episode could be a lifeline for you. And again, I can only share what's worked for me and for others that I've worked with. So look, by the end, I think you're going to see that there is light at the end of the hiring tunnel, and you can create and forge a clear path to hiring your next awesome team member. They exist, and you can do it. So we're going to help you see about ways to avoid the hiring and firing fiascos that many go through. So let's roll. All right, look. So my story may or may not sound like a worst nightmare. I know some guys, that's like regular business, day in and day out. They have 5 guys. They never know which guy's not showing up or which guy's been arrested recently. That's one way to run a business, and there's another way where nobody's getting arrested, right? So you're probably wrestling with a lot of your own fears around hiring, and let's just call them out for what they are. That's the best way to address them. So let's think about the whole payroll panic issue, right? I can remember I needed to hire a lead carpenter. And I clearly remember I was at the gas station getting fuel. And this is when we were having one of the economy issues. And fuel was like, at that time, it was probably $5, $6 a gallon for the diesel I was getting. And I'm looking at how much it's going to cost me to fill up my vehicle. And I know that the person that I'm getting ready to hire, what it's going to cost to pay for them and put their vehicle on the road, right? We're going to be paying for all the fuel, maintenance, and I'm looking at how much we're going to be paying them per every 2 weeks, right? For their annual salary, plus bonuses. We're giving them benefits. They're going to have vacation time. There's going to be days where hours are spent doing training. So there's non-productive time where they're not actually in the field generating revenue for us. And I was starting to say, Mike, maybe you can't do it. And on the flip side, I had to say to myself, Mike, you need to hire this person and take the chance because you're never going to get to your sales goals if your production can't get the jobs done. You could sell work all day long, but you got to be able to produce it as well. And you have to be able to produce it profitably, right? And preferably to a point where your customers are happy so that they're referring you and it keeps rolling like that and you have a good reputation, all the things, right? So let's look at this. Many of us, right, I found for me, I was terrified that hiring some of these high-level guys that I wouldn't be able to necessarily guarantee that I could pay them every week. I wasn't even sure if I was getting paid every week, right? And now I'm going to give these guys better packages than maybe I'm even getting, right? They're going to be getting guaranteed. They're getting vacation. Heck, I wasn't even taking vacation. They're getting benefits. I didn't have benefits, right? So often this is all stemming from the fact that I noticed that I was like, Mike, you got to start charging more. You have to be more efficient with how you're having the guys run the jobs. You have to be more efficient. You want your guys to be more efficient? You have to be more efficient, right? So I get it, right? It's easy to shy away, and especially when it comes to sales. I know a lot of guys are thinking, I don't need to be a better salesman. My work sells itself, right? And you have a lot of people have a very negative connotation around sales in the first place, right? Sales doesn't have to be sleazy, but that's often where a lot of people go, I don't want to be like a used car salesman. Nobody wants to be like a used car salesman, right? So learning how to persuade and learning how to be an advocate and guiding, that is a better way so that you can actually earn a proper wage, right? And proper profit so that you can afford to grow a team. So again, raising prices isn't about being like this con person, right? It's about being a professional and valuing your craft. All right, let's look at the inefficiency trap. I see this constantly, and some of you might be living this. I remember I was having my guys track things for a little while, right? Just writing down like, hey, tell me what you did today. Put it in. We had just like this basic sheet. It was like a job log, let's call it. And I was flipping through one guy's log for the week. And what I started noticing was multiple trips each day leaving a job site and going to get something, a material, a tool, whatever it was. And I was like, that is interesting. Like, I get it. Absolutely. Some jobs, some things come up. It's unexpected. You have to run out. But every day, 2 and 3 times a day, what is going on? This guy, I would call him more of a professional leave the job site shopper than he was actually like a carpenter, right? And what this was coming from was just poor planning, and he just enjoyed leaving the site and going to the store. Bottom line. So we had to start all of then instituting a policy about how often you run out and get things and who's going to go get them. And so think about this, right? Some guys just don't even recognize they're doing it because it just becomes the trap that they start getting into. And you start bleeding profit and you don't even see it, right? If your guys are making if you are making multiple trips and you're doing things in the middle of the day when it should have been taken care of on the way to the site, or it's taken care of on the way home, right, for the next day, and it's all generally surrounding poor planning, lack of planning, right? Just not planning at all and not learning how to plan ahead and anticipate, right, and stocking the vehicle. Many of you people, and we found this to be true for us, we could finish jobs easily 10 to 40% faster when we took time each day to plan out what we were going to try to accomplish the next day and double check the vehicle. Look on site. Do we have everything that we're needing? Does a material order need to be placed now for tomorrow? Right? What equipment do we have to get on site? Let's figure it out today so that we're ready to go for tomorrow. And this is hard for a lot of guys, and I know it was tough for me at times because you're so in the weeds in the moment, right? You're overwhelmed. You have 13,000 things going on, and you're like, I ain't got time. I got to keep working. No, the best thing you can do is sit down and sharpen the saw, as they say. All right. Now, here's a big one: ego and control. And this is really a challenge. And some people just will never get out of the way. Others, it takes time and practice, and it's uncomfortable for sure, right? I know when I first started, I wanted people to think of me as competent, right, and capable. And there were times where I was like, I didn't know how to do everything all the time. Some of it I had to learn on the fly, especially when it was around growing the business, right? It was the first time I've done this, so I have to figure it out. And what I found worked best for me, and I'll share it in a moment. But think about this. Look, many of us were scared to hire someone because what if they outshine us? Right? What if somebody else in the company does it better than me? What if my clients recognize that my helper is a more skilled carpenter than I am, or he's stronger, or he's faster, or he's funnier, or he's more in shape, or whatever it is, right? Many of us find that we get worried that we won't be the go-to anymore, right? Clients or the crew might start going to the new person for answers, right? And that can be a huge bruise for many of our egos. Now, think about this for a minute. Imagine, and you'll probably see the craziness, but follow me here. Imagine that you own an NFL sports team, right? And you're the team owner. How good would your team be if you were scared to hire athletes that were more athletic than you were as the owner, right? Your team wouldn't be very good. Now, let's break it down even more. Let's talk about the coach. All right, so here you got the coach. He wants to win a Super Bowl. If that coach is scared to death to draft players, like let's say a quarterback, let's say the coach isn't a good quarterback, and he's scared that if I hire this really good quarterback, well, he'll throw the ball better than I ever did. He's faster than I ever was, right? Like if his ego is in the way, that team's it's going to suck. It's never going to do well, right? You see this. It's absurd. And you recognize like how silly that is. But when you reverse it and you look at a lot of small businesses and the small business owners, many of us are afraid to surround ourselves with people that are more talented to us. And here's the irony, the rub, as they say, is that the most successful business owners relish the fact that they have hired, and that's their like secret weapon. It's what makes them their superpower, is that they have recognized the key to winning is hiring people that are way more talented in their discipline that they need for the job to be successful than the business owner ever was or ever could be or ever wants to be or ever will be, right? So for me, I recognized that the best thing I could do is find the most talented carpenter I could. Now, this is the way I approached it. I personally was not a union trained carpenter. I didn't join a union. I didn't grow up in the industry. I didn't do that. However, several of my best carpenters were, and I looked for them, right? Like I wanted to find someone who was trained in the union and had all the foundational skills and had been taught a proper way of building. I could bring them in, right, and relish the fact that these guys know what they're doing when it comes to building, okay? So that is something I would recommend to you guys. And if it's hiring a salesperson, right, maybe you don't have the best personality, you're not the friendliest, your disposition isn't always the best, you're scattered a lot. Well, the best thing that you can do is hire a salesperson who is unlike you, that is organized, right, and is has that great outgoing that personality where he just gets along naturally and people gravitate towards them, right? So you want to, sometimes they say hire the weakness of that you have. All right, so I get it. We have our own internal fears. They are real, but they're not the end of the story, and they don't have to like always get in our way. They can if you're not aware of them. All right, that's half the battle. So let's talk about the psychology just for a minute, right? Look, if you're feeling called out, relax. It's not your fault. Our brain, your brain, my brain, they're wired in a sense to make hiring feel like a gamble. It's trying to protect us. Its intent is good, but the way it's going about it is flawed. And we have to outsmart ourselves sometimes, right? So maybe you've heard of the term loss aversion, right? There's a Nobel Prize winner, Daniel Kahneman, who showed we're more afraid of losing something like money, control, or our reputation than we are excited about gaining something. Let's say in our situation as remodelers, like a killer team. And that's why your stomach sometimes can be in knots over the hiring of a new employee, right? There's this other thing. It's called the Dunning-Kruger effect. Maybe some of you have heard of this, right? Look, in 1999, there was a study by Dunning and Kruger, and they found that many folks overestimate their skills, right? And they're not actually as sharp as they think they are. And in remodeling, this shows up specifically. You see this when an owner refuses to delegate or admit that they need help with training. And the best leaders, right, they recognize where their gaps are and they say, you know what, I don't know it all, but I'm learning, or I'm willing to hire those who do. This was, for instance, I can remember this specifically. I wanted to get into renovation work in the Baltimore City, and there are a lot of these big old brick row homes, and most of them had painted or form stone on the fronts over top of the brick, right? And I wasn't very versed in all the masonry things, and I remember we wanted to get all the paint off of the front of one of the row homes we bought, and I remember like I had to learn about hiring a masonry person to come out and be able to do like an acid wash, it was called. It was a whole process, right, where they would literally, and then we would do the grind and the tuck and point, right, do all the mortar joints would get redone, and man, that brick would look amazing. I didn't know how to do it, right? I had to find someone who was talented. I knew the outcome that I wanted, and then I had to go find in what I would think to be like the best person to help me get the outcome that I want, right? It's not about me learning how to do it. It's about me learning enough to know who should be doing it. And so think about that. It's not always the how, it's the who. So big companies, you know, they've cracked this code years ago. And often this is all part of the evolution of the small, self-employed remodeling person. This is how you grow and become the business owner. I had to go through it. Everyone who wants to be successful and grow will have to grow through this. So let's talk about Google's Project Aristotle, right? That study found like this psychological safety. And then what they found was teams feel safe to mess up and learn, right? And it's the number one driver often of high performing teams. It's not raw talent. It's not fancy gear. It's a culture where people understand that they can fail and they can fail going forward. And it's encouraged. Like, hey, we'll make some mistakes. We're going to break some eggs to make that omelet, right? So you don't have to be as big as like a Google. You just need to learn how to make it work within your remodeling business and help your team understand that you want them to be growing and learning, and it's okay if they make mistakes. We're going to get through this. So why do hires, right? Why do some of the new people that we get go wrong? And like, let's think about like my drunk driving carpenter disaster, right? Often it's because we're like chasing the wrong thing. Like I say, hey, I want a hard worker, right? Or someone who just gets it. And that's could be code. Maybe I want a mini me, but as an employee. And sometimes you have to recognize, hey, newsflash, the person who is a lot like myself that I'm looking for, they're probably running their own business, right? And if I'm out whining and complaining like there's no good guys out there, it's likely because I haven't learned how to attract, how to teach, how to set up a training process, right? Or build a system that someone can come in and be successful. So I made mistakes with my first several hires, right? Sometimes I just expected them. It was like I wanted them to read my mind and just know what to do. Like, hey, you've remodeled before, just get it done. And they're like, well, there's a lot of variables out here, Mike. What is it we're supposed to do here? And I started recognizing, Mike, you have to learn how to be a more thorough communicator, right? More attention to detail and get things out of your head, put it on paper so you can hand it to someone and they can run with it. So it's interesting too, and some of you, this is important that you learn, or maybe it gives validity to the concept. Like there's corporate research that has been done that shows this. There was Wilkinson Ecological Design, right? And they used what's called the Winslow personality test to figure out what makes a great teammate for their company. So they found the biggest thing for them within construction was conscientiousness, right? Being reliable and organized and emotionally stable, staying calm under pressure. And that was their predictor for a successful crew member. Now, how many of you can say that that describes your current team or the people that you've looked at considering to add to your team, right? Let's run through that again. Conscientiousness, right? So being reliable, organized, and emotionally stable, the ability to stay calm under pressure, right? That was their predictor for success in a crew member. Now, that was out in the field. Now, how about project managers, right? So they would prioritize people that were a little more extroverted, and they looked for people that had more ability to have agreeableness for team harmony, right? And this helped them essentially get to almost to a 90% success rate with hires. That's phenomenal, right? You start saying they cracked the code. They figured out, like, if we can find a person that has these main qualities about them, we can teach them the nuances, about the way our construction company wants to run, our remodeling business runs. But if they have by default these couple personality traits and characteristics, then they're going to be really good in this position. So what this shows is that once you understand a couple things that you're looking for, when you spot them, when you recognize, you come across a person who has those qualities, you can be like, that person would probably be great for my company. I just need to teach them how to do things at my company. So think about this too. There was a Home Depot actually has studied a lot of their top contractors and found that low neuroticism, right? Not freaking out under stress, boosted client satisfaction by over 15 to 20%. And they use this as a way to screen hires, right, and improve retention within their system for who they're going to have working for them, right? So where I'm going with this is corporations learn because they have more swings at bat, right? When you're being a new, young remodeling business, you often just don't even know. But now you can say, well, wait a minute, how have these other companies figured it out? Because there's a lot of successful companies out there that have great employees. And you can take the foundational method that they use to find good employees, and you can implement that for yourself. And you don't have to have 17,000 locations across the country, right? Like a Home Depot may have. So where I'm going with this is successful companies, they don't guess so much. They use data and they have a process and they look for certain things, and that helps them have more success. Does it mean that it works 100% of the time, every time? No. There's always anomalies. There's always one-offs. There's always that outlier. But in general, it provides a much more predictable process. And I can speak personally for me is as I refined my lead carpenter hiring process, several of my future lead carpenter hires were way more successful, right? They weren't all 100% everything that I hoped, but I didn't have the huge negative consequences, right? There would be some little things that might come up here and there. So if you're ready to hire your next superstar or the first rock star that you need for your company, here's just a no-nonsense game plan that can help get you started. First, like face your fear, right? Write down specifically what is it that you're scared of. What are you afraid of? Is it you can't afford the person? You're afraid of the salary that you're going to offer them? Okay. And then next to that, you can say, I need to raise my rates. I need to be less inefficient, right? I need to charge more. I need to cut out all these extra material runs that we're doing during the day, every day, right? So you can start with a simple process and you'll see quickly that you actually probably are closer to being able to hire the next person than you are from not being able to hire. Sometimes it's just the littlest shift that you make will then compound itself, right? If you can just eliminate 2 hours being wasted every day of a guy leaving site, going and trying to find, come back, right? That's huge. That adds up over the course of a week and then compounds itself over the course of the next month and the next 6 months, etc. All right. Second part here is start looking for quality personality traits, right? Forget the whole, I got to find a hard worker, right? No. What you want to look for are people that are conscientious, right? Do they keep their stuff organized? Is their vehicle kept clean? Do they take good care of their tools, right? Do they show up on time, right? Are they respectful, right? This is going to help you with all these, specifically if you need guys to help be client facing for you, right? Look for someone who's able to have some extrovert characteristics. They don't have to be a true extrovert. It just can be an introvert who's at least okay with getting outside of their comfort zone and having a proper communication process, right? Where they can be conscientious. And in interviews, you might ask questions like, hey, tell me about a chaotic job site or a tough client or a situation you've come across recently. Either it happened to you or you saw it happen to someone else, and see how they describe all of it. And you can get their perspective, right? And what they think's appropriate, inappropriate, etc. All right. 3, this one can be challenging, but you can do it over time. It's not as hard as it seems. It's just hard to get it going, right? So build an actual process and a training system. You don't need a whole HR department. You just need maybe, let's call it like you start with a 1 week that goes into maybe a 1 month and then into like a 6 week or a 3 month onboarding plan. Like you just come up with, this is what I would like this person to be able to know how to do and where I would like them to be over the course of the X amount of time, right? and you just build a runway for them. At like week 1, maybe you cover just some simple safety things and basics, right? Week 2, maybe they get paired with somebody who's experienced on your team, right? And then in the second month, maybe now it's time to give a little bit of feedback. So there was a study it was Burson by Deloitte, right? And they found that 70% of employees will stay longer at companies that actually invest in the employees' growth. So if you can show that you care, your employees will invest in themselves as well in the process, and they'll stick around longer. Most people want to get better and feel good about the job that they're doing. So if you as a company can figure out how to help your employee win more, that's going to be a benefit for all involved. All right. This whole failing forward, it's a buzz term. You hear a lot about it, like, and people have different opinions about it, right? So let's talk about like Amazon. I mean, they thrive because they see mistakes as their data, right? And some people will laugh, and others are like, man, that fail fast culture, what it does is it causes us to learn very quickly. So if a hire that you have pursued, if it doesn't work, that's okay. Don't beat yourself up about it. Quickly assess it. What did you learn? Figure out where you went wrong. What did you do right? What was not so right? What would you do differently next time? And you just go right back out and let's hire the next person. All right. And, maybe it's getting a better, clear job ad, right? Maybe it's having a more proper job description. Whatever it is, you'll build off of it each time. And the next go round, you'll be that much better. And after several attempts, you'll knock it out of the park. Just keep moving. So this is a big one too. Let go of the control. Take a deep breath and just trust that it's going to work out. And you don't have to have that death grip around everything, right? Again, the best leaders, like sports team coaches, right? Professional sports specifically, they surround themselves with the best talent that they can find. And often you'll notice that the best talent has the best personality, right? You want to get away from a lot of people that have some of that egocentric attitudes, even with employees, right? So look, if your employee can get more praise because they're doing a great job, that's not a threat. That's proof that you're a genius. Hire them, right? And there was another Harvard Business Review that found that leaders who delegate to their talented teams, right, easily can boost performance among the whole company by 20% or more. So think about that. Like some of you are used to being on a job site where people laugh about how poor one of the guys is and how many, like the mistakes that they made. They're not that smart. They're dumb as a box of rocks. They can't hit a nail straight. All the jokes, right? The reality is you want to shift, if possible, the culture to where, man, we have an amazing team and everyone's proud of their team. And it's just a little mindset shift that can make a huge difference. All right. So here's the big takeaway, the conclusion. Look, we've had it. It's happened to me. It's going to happen to you. Most likely you'll have a bad hire. And that's not the end of the world. Like, that's just how it goes. It's like buying a bad burger at a restaurant. It happens, right? And then you know better for next time. So if you're even too scared to try, I get it. It's not your fault. You don't have to be that way. All right. You can recognize now that, man, that's good that I'm scared. That recognizes that I'm conscientious about it. All right. Look, nobody generally in the industry is being handed a manual for how to run a successful remodeling business. Most of us have to figure it out on our own. And I had to go through that process. And so my first hire was a train wreck, right? But it taught me how to hire better. So there's the flip side as well. So if you're listening to this podcast, that puts you ahead of thousands of other business owners that are already on track to be going out of business, right? And never take the time to think about their approach. So there's multiple studies that show, how few small remodeling businesses are going to survive. We've talked about it at extensiveness on this podcast. So at the end of the day, remember that as an owner, you can choose success. You can be different. You can learn. You can grow. And you can change. And right where you are right now is perfect. You actually know more now than you did 30 some minutes ago, right? You can now come up with a great new way to hire. You can focus on traits. You can stop being so scared, right? You can recognize that we're going to build the system as we go. And a great employee is going to want to help grow with you. And they'll recognize, like, all right, you don't have to have it all figured out. Because if you did have it all figured out, then you wouldn't be hiring me. You would already have someone in place. So you want someone who's cognizant and can recognize where you're at, and they want to be a part of that growing team, and they want to contribute. They say, great, I can help with this. So start small, right? Tweak one interview question here or there, make a checklist, right? Figure out how to be more organized on job sites. Every step moves you a little bit closer, and the goal here is to just make incremental gains that make huge changes. All right. At the end of the day, let's keep the vans out of the impound lot, right? All right. So what could be your next step? I recommend getting a notebook and start jotting some things down. Use your notes app on a phone if that's what you like, and put it pen to paper and see it. All right. And pick one action item from this episode. Listen to it a second time and come up with a plan, and then act on it. Take action now. So we recommend and welcome anyone to share anything they would like with us. If you want to put something on social media, you can do whatever works for you. All right. So if this episode has struck a nerve, or let's say, as they say, hit home for you, the next thing you can do is just stop waiting, stop overthinking, and take some real action towards growing your business. If you haven't already, I would recommend you head over to getpaidtoestimate.com and sign up for the next 5-day Remodeler Challenge. Look, in just 5 days, you can learn exactly how to break through a lot of the roadblocks that have been holding you back, right? You can learn how to stop having to give away free estimates, and can eliminate the tire kickers and being ghosted, right? And wasting time and energy. So you're looking to build a remodeling business that actually works for you and not one that you're trapped inside of. And if you're ready to just stop playing small, right? If you want to start making some real moves, go to getpaidtoestimate.com and sign up. All right. That is it for episode 61 of the Hack Hour. And we appreciate those of you that have been here. If you enjoyed it, please share this with someone who you know. Maybe you got a buddy that's frustrated about not finding employees or understanding the next move. Send them a link. Let them listen to this. Talk about it. See what you guys like, agree with, disagree with. All right. So keep building, keep growing, and don't let one bad hire steal all your tools and all your dreams. Remember, your remodeling business success is ready for you. Are you ready for your success? Till next time.
Thank you for listening to the Hack Hour podcast. It would be awesome if you would leave us a quick review on iTunes. To further your remodeling success, go to remodelingriches.com.